You're listening to the Woman of Value podcast. You are about to hear the story of a woman who is following her dreams and passions and creating positive change in the world.
If I am going to be in this space and not have a partner and not be married at the age of 42, well, I'm going to have a great life anyway. I'm going to figure out a way to be happy and joyful, knowing that there are lots of ways to be happy in life. And so I really lived by that. I really learned how to live by that. And it was really one of the best things that ever happened to me, because that skill of learning how to be okay and more than okay on your own is freedom.
My guest today is Jill Sherer Murray. She is a TEDx speaker and influencer. She's an author and the founder of Let Go For It, which is a lifestyle brand dedicated to helping people let go for a better life and businesses let go for better communications. She has an amazing TEDx talk. It's called The Unstoppable Power of Letting Go, and it has been viewed millions of times. Her book, which will be out in May of 2020, is called Big Wild Love, The Unstoppable Power of Letting Go. She wrote it in response to the viewers who reached out to her for help and inspiration after seeing her talk. So we're going to talk about that and lots more today. Welcome to the show, Jill.
Thanks, Sandy. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here talking with you.
Oh, and I'm so excited. You were on my other show, Last First Date Radio, and we hit it off. And I just thought, This is a kindred spirit. Let's have her here.
Totally. Absolutely. Very much looking forward to chatting again.
Yeah. So we always start with, what is a woman of value to you?
Well, first of all, I love that you're doing a woman of value, because it is such an important message. It's enormous. And especially in my work, and I know you see it in your work, it's a concept that is really foreign to so many people, and it needs to be much more prominent. So for me, being a woman of value means that I love myself, warts and all, and that I convey that love for myself every single day in every choice that I make for myself. So it's remembering who I am and what my worth is when I move through challenges, joyful moments, sad moments, compromising moments, or potentially compromising moments, where I'm constantly keeping it in the front of my mind. And it's, I say that because it's so easy for us always to go back to those old reflexes and habits that we've lived with for so very long. So it's being a woman of value is really a very conscious choice that I make every single day. And it's not always an easy choice, but I have to sometimes remind myself, like, nope, come back. This is who you are. Remember, come back. And I know a lot of women of value at this age, thankfully. And I have to say, I think we all have, some of that has become very reflexive, but I do think there are those moments where we're really tried and pressed, where we have to remember that we're women of value. And I even just love that phrase, because it's a full sentence.
Yeah. And I love that you brought up the struggle to remain in your power, in your worth. And the truth is, it's not about always being there. It's about remembering who you are at your core. And nobody else has actually defined it this way. It's so interesting to me to ask this question, because everybody has a different take on it. And I love what you said. One. Yeah, it's the inner critic is so huge, and it's one of the things that I work on a lot with clients, because we go there with all those voices that don't serve us and take away from our value.
I mean, we've had those voices for a lifetime.
Yeah.
It's not like you just turn around in a week and say they're gone. I mean, there's some voices I know for myself. There's some voices that I've been able to say that to, like, okay, see ya. But there's some voices that I will live with forever. Right. And so I say, instead of pushing myself, because what can happen is, I can't get rid of this voice. I'm bad. I'm horrible. What's wrong with me? I can't get rid of this voice. It's terrible. Instead of saying, okay, voice, I know you're here, but I'm going to win. So I know you're going to pop up and I will acknowledge you. But at the end of the day, I'm going to win. My voice is going to rise to the top instead of putting that pressure on to let go of all of the voices, right? Because sometimes we just can't do that. It's hard, you know?
Totally. And we learned this in coaching school. You cannot really eradicate the inner critic.
Mm-hmm.
You can tame it. And
Right.
so what you're saying is some of those voices are going to come back. And then if you
Mm-hmm.
get into self-beat up over the fact that the voice is there, you're just perpetuating those inner critic voices.
It's like when you can't sleep at night, you know, and then you're laying there like, oh my God, I have to sleep. I have to sleep. I have to sleep. And then you're just up all night with this anxiety versus like, okay, I can't sleep. I'm going to read. I'm going to do this. I'm going to just accept that I can't sleep. And I think, you know, it's remembering to say that. It's remembering to do that. And I think when you are a woman of value, you accept and embrace that those voices are going to sometimes live side by side with you. And it's okay as long as you, at the end of the day, are making your own choices with your own voice.
Yeah.
And not those other voices. And it is work. It is definitely work.
And it's
sometimes
ongoing.
more than others.
Yeah. And you know, when I work with women, I give them the tools so that they can get grounded and they can come back to it. So there's so much you can learn to help us through that. And I think you were in my bedroom last night at 3:30 in the morning.
Maybe you were in mine.
We should have called each other. I woke up at 3:30. I had like a stuffy nose and I got up like trying to fight it. I got to go back to sleep. And then I went up and get a freaking tissue. And when I got up, I was like, okay, I'm up. And I stayed in bed for a couple of hours, but I got up, I said, no, I'm ready for coffee. And I got up and started my day.
Right.
So,
why not?
like, yeah, stop fighting it. And, you know, I'll crash at 9 o'clock tonight, but that's okay.
Right.
All right.
That's
so
great.
Jill,
9 o'clock. Wow. That's impressive.
9 o'clock. I can make it that late. No.
That's good.
We're getting old.
It's scary. I embrace it. I'm leaning into it. I'm leaning into the 8 o'clock hour now.
We have dinner at 4.
Dinner at 4. Perfect.
They have specials for other senior citizens.
I know. Oh my gosh.
All right, Jill, let's get down into it. And I know that this is your thing, this thing. So let's get into that moment when you realized your value, because you made a big change in your life many years ago. So tell us about that.
I did. And you know, and before I even tell you that, I will say, like, I think I have aha women of value moments all the time. But this one really was the kickoff, so to speak. It was like the kickoff to my women of value portion of life. So I was in a relationship for 12 years with a very wonderful man who I loved very much, who just couldn't give me what I wanted. I wanted to get married and he didn't. And it's really a common story. And I spent many, many years ignoring what I knew to be true, which was that he was probably never going to give me what I wanted. He was never going to marry me. And I rationalized away why that was okay. I said, well, you know, I have two graduate degrees. I have no idea where they are. So what's a piece of paper and a marriage certificate? And I had a good person who I knew loved me, and he was smart and he was kind and he was good looking, and I didn't have to be alone. And I really, in my mind, felt like this was probably, not to shortchange him, but this was probably the best I would be able to do for myself. And so I never left. I stayed and stayed and stayed, and I grew even more unhappy, but I would sort of push that unhappiness down in my gut, kind of like a beach ball, you know, hold it down, hold it down. This is, you know, I would convince myself I'm not conventional. I don't need the conventional life. This is perfect for me. And then we had talked about taking a very big step in living together. So we didn't even live together. And he was supposed to meet me at an apartment that we were going to look at to live in together. And he never showed up. And that was the moment. And I think I think it was a moment that it happened because I was ready for it to happen. I call it my epiphany moment. Epiphanies, I talk a lot about epiphanies. I think they're critically important. I had many of them along the way, tiny little, I call them like little earthquakes, they were like little tremors in the foundation, but I pushed them aside. But this one I was ready to see, and it was quite large. And I realized in that moment in a stranger's bathroom, where I was literally in the bathroom floor, cliched, but that's where we do some of our best, crying and self-pitying and realizations, that I had to change. It was an epiphany I could not unsee. And so I made a decision in that very moment that I had to change. And I not only had to let go of this man that I loved deeply and desperately, but I really had to let go of a whole life that I had in that city, because if I stayed there, it just would have been too easy to go back and forth. He had been such an enormous part of my life in that city. So I uprooted everything. I left my job. I sold my condo. I got rid of my esthetician and my dog walker and my gynecologist and all the people that I loved. And I left my friends in proximity in terms of being close. And I just moved back closer to where my family was, to New Hope, Pennsylvania, which is a lovely little artist community. But I mean, it was literally leaving like Barnum and Bailey Circus to go to like Gilligan's Island. I mean, a huge, huge life change from the city to this tiny little, I say I lived in the country with New Yorkers. It was, this little bucolic area. And I really, did a lot of work on myself in terms of stopping, looking at him and asking the questions of, why is he not giving me what I want? And really owning the fact that, why am I looking to someone else to tell me what I have in life? That's up to me. Yeah. That's up to whatever I choose and how I behave in the world. And it forced me really, Sandy, to look back even at the men that I dated before him, who were just terrible. I made some very bad choices for myself. And I always looked at the other person. They were cads. They were terrible people. How could they? But, at the end of the day, it really comes down to the choices we make for ourselves. And I learned that very intently. And so that really, I say his not showing up was really a great gift to me, because I really needed to have that moment. And from that, I really learned a lot about myself. And I really came to the conclusion when I finally moved, I uprooted my whole life, and I said, if I am going to be in this space and not have a partner and not be married at the age of 42, well, I'm going to have a great life anyway. I'm going to figure out a way to be happy and joyful, knowing that there are lots of ways to be happy in life. And so I really lived by that. I really learned how to live by that. And it was really one of the best things that ever happened to me, because that skill of learning how to be okay and more than okay on your own is freedom. It's just freedom. Yeah.
Wow. So I want to reflect on a few things.
Yeah.
So I love the epiphanies and the little earthquakes that you had. Yeah. We all have them, but I think on reflection, a lot of times when a relationship ends, you have the space to look back. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this even with girlfriends where something was off and person never really fully showed up. And then something happened that was a catalyst for it to end. And in my opinion, a relationship that really is based on a strong foundation, it doesn't just end over one misunderstanding or one thing, right? It has to be something big, and the foundation's usually not very strong. But I love the metaphor of not showing up, because he didn't show up physically, but he also didn't show up in other ways. And one of the mottos of the woman of value is she shows up, stands up, and speaks up. And that's what makes somebody really fully present. And somebody who's not going to give you everything you need, it's not a bad person, but is not the right person for you.
That's right. That's right. And that's a hard, and that's a hard lesson, I think, for people, because everybody has a right to their preferences. He absolutely had a right to what he wanted, and even if I, in the moment I would say, well, if you don't want this, you should just let me go. But it wasn't up to him to choose that for me.
Yes.
It was up to me to say, it's okay if you don't want that, but I'm going to let myself go. I'm going to wish you well and thank you for all that I've learned from you and all that you've given me, because he did give me so much. But we've got to part ways now because we just don't want the same things.
Yeah.
And even after we broke up, we still remained in contact as friends because he was a wonderful person. It's just that, the feelings we had for you, there was always still love there. It just shifted. And I think it's so interesting when I talk about that, because people will say, well, how could you have even talked to him? How could you have even? And I said, well, again, he was a good person. He had a right to what he wanted. It wasn't his responsibility to make sure I had what I wanted.
Yeah.
And so he was always honorable about it. But it's very hard, I think, for people. Sometimes they think, it's an all or nothing proposition, and I have to leave in anger or in hate. But that really only comes back to us.
No, it actually, I remember Dr. Phil once said this years ago, and I remembered it when I got divorced, that when you're still really angry, you still have too much feeling for the person,
Right.
And
that's right.
when I left, it was with complacency. It was with, I have run out of steam. I can't make this work anymore. And I think, there's a big difference. And I dated somebody one time who just kept saying to me, your husband was an idiot for leaving you. Like he just wanted to be angry at my ex. And I kept saying, I don't want to go there. Like, I'm not angry at him. Why are you insisting that he was an idiot?
Right.
It said more about him, my date, than about my ex.
Yeah.
But what you said, and I really want to highlight this, because this is really about taking your power back. And
absolutely,
when I've seen so many women come to me who are stuck in these relationships, and they keep going back. They keep breaking up and going back. And then they say, why can't he just not take me back? And again, giving all the power over to that guy.
Right.
And I remember that moment for me, because I used to be that woman, and
we all used to be that woman.
Right. and so,
right, of course.
When you realize what it is that you need, and you're really strong in your values and what you need to thrive in the world, you start getting rid of all the excess. It doesn't work anymore. It holds you back from the
And I think, yes, I completely agree with you. And there's also an element of being more than okay with being on your own.
Yeah.
It's like, that is not a consolation prize. I mean, there is much joy in being on your own, and there is much work to be done when you're on your own.
Yeah.
I feel like, the time that I spent alone was such a time of reclamation for me. It was an opportunity to not have to worry or care about compromising or meeting the needs of another person. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to just be and to really get to know, sort of who I was and what was my role in, for lack of a better word, the relationship failures that I'd had over the years. Because it certainly wasn't always about other people. The one thing they all had in common was me.
Correct.
Right? So what was I doing that was derailing or sabotaging my own efforts? And how can I make some important changes? And it also gave me an opportunity to really think about, what did I want? What did I want from love and from my life and for myself? And I could not have done any of that really deep reflection without having to worry about how I was presenting to another person or how they might have been feeding that reflection. So there was a lot of freedom in that. And I will tell you, and I'm sure you found this as well, many years ago, I was weight loss diarist for Shape magazine. So like a crazy person, I put my weight in a national magazine 12 times, more than once, 12 times. And the magazine, they gave me access to a body image psychologist once a month for an hour, she was phenomenal. She was just amazing. And one of the things I'll never forget she said to me was, when people lose something, so, she was talking about, losing the ability to eat, or the ability to, be sedentary and not have exercise, or to maybe lose friends or people in your life as a result of those lifestyle changes, or a job, or, someone we love. Most people rush to fill that void. They rush to figure out how to fill that cup back up. But really, those are the golden moments for us to be able to fill up our own cups. And that's only when we can do that for ourselves, that we can not only be the best partner for somebody else, but we can attract back the right partners, the kinds of people that we want to have in our lives. And so I talk to women and I say, great, good for you. You're alone. That's wonderful. Like, how are you enjoying that time? How are you being the best that you can be? Because that can be wonderful too, is being on your own.
Yeah, I so agree with you. And it's so scary for so many people. I have many clients who are petrified to be alone, and they have gone from man to man to man to man. And you become unconscious, you just filling the void, and you're coming from a place of scarcity and not abundance.
Yes.
And so,
right.
But I think it's such an important piece, to take that time and take stock of who are you, what do you need, what do you want to live your best life first. And so that's the first thing I do with clients is you take a break from dating and you go and do a self-assessment, because we have to take that. We also learn a lot when we're on dates and we're in relationships. We learn a tremendous amount about ourselves, because
absolutely,
you can't just be in the thinking mode and the studying mode the rest of your life.
Right.
And some people get stuck there too. But a lot of people think that the reason they don't have love is because it's not in the cards, or it's because they're not enough. And what you're saying, and I so agree with you on, is it's not that we're not enough. It's that we haven't fully shown up. That we haven't shown up first for ourselves and then for others. So people don't really know who we are, and it's like you see the beauty in so many people, inside and outside, and how people hide it and conceal because of fears, because of past pain. And that's what comes out. That's what people feel. I can feel it. If I meet somebody,
absolutely,
you can feel immediately the guards, the shields, that shield us from love. And once you can learn the tools to let those shields down, so much is possible.
Well, yeah. And I mean, and the thing is it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter what you look like or how old you are or what you do. If you are grounded and confident and self-assured, that is very attractive to the right people and very unattractive to the wrong people.
Correct.
So, it shouldn't be the single motivating reason to do it, but I found a really wonderful byproduct of being self-assured and confident is that it's not appealing to people who aren't in the same space that I am.
Yeah.
And that's a gift to me, because they're not the right partners for me. It's like we're looking for people who are equals. We want people to meet us where we are, and where we want to be is our healthiest, most self-loving, or as I now say, our big, wild, loving place, because only then are we drawing back to us that same caliber of person. And I'll tell people, while that may narrow your options on some level, because you're not looking for anybody with a pulse who could drive at night, but you're looking for a quality person who's actually going to give you what you need, and as importantly, allow you to be all that you are in giving back, because that is such a huge piece of it. I mean, I can tell you, if I think back to all my relationships, I spent so much time being afraid to be all this to them, you know? I mean, holding back. I mean, think about how uncomfortable that is. It's like, I would go home and be like,
take the spandex off.
right. It's like taking almost like taking mental spandex and your personality spandex off, because you just, you want to be able to be you and not have somebody just accept that. I've heard women say, well, he accepts that I'm like this. And I'm like, accepts?
Yeah. Embraces.
My husband champions, embraces. I mean, he's like, he loves all the crazy that I bring to him, all the big personality and the never bored stuff that comes our way. And that's so important, is women, we need to be able to not just receive love, but we need to be able to safely give love as fully as we need to. So
I so agree. And I think so many women and men have trouble receiving. I think we're givers. That's very much ingrained in who we become in life, because that's rewarded, you're giving, you give until you're depleted. And you're not even knowing why you're giving, but you think it's an obligation that you have to give and you should give. And then you don't get, and then you get resentful. And so, there's that whole hamster wheel. And so I think learning to receive, and for women, it is part of our physical being. We are meant to be receivers. If you think about men having a penis, women have a vagina,
Right. So you're going to go there, are you, Sandy?
I am going there.
I'm like, she's not going to go there.
Yeah, we're going to name it.
She's not going to go there. She's going to go there.
It's a good way to remember. You got that vagina, it receives.
It's true. It's so true. It is so true. It's like, it makes us uncomfortable, but we're all, and I see a lot of women apologize. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. But no, you're right. Stop apologizing. Please, oh, please. Yes.
Yeah. And I think that this was just a discussion in my Facebook group today about a woman was told by a male friend of hers that she's too much like a man. And she didn't even ask him what he meant by it. But my feeling is, like, first of all, she should have gotten curious instead of felt defeated and deflated and what's wrong with me.
Oh, yeah.
Ask him, like, he's giving you a reflection that is really helpful. And so many women are perceived as so independent and with all these guards up, and they're really good at doing, and they're successful in business and receiving. So the receiving energy, where a man feels that he can actually show up and be part of her life, that doesn't exist in a lot of these women. They're not creating that space.
Yeah. So, it's hard to switch gears. Yeah.
Yeah. But it is.
Yeah. We're being asked to be, to ramp up sort of our masculine energy in the workplace, depending on the jobs that we're in. Yeah. And it can be difficult to switch gears, and to come back and remember that it's okay to be feminine. It's okay to let someone care for you. Yeah. Let someone, and that doesn't mean, I'm going to take care of you, but on some level, it's still lovely to have a man do certain things for you. And, my husband brings me coffee every morning in bed, and I just say, thank you.
I received that. Thank you.
I'm receiving this coffee. I know he's probably waiting for me to say, like, I'll get it this morning.
No, he enjoys it. He's a provider.
He really does. I mean, it's like the little things, that we can let them do, let them pay, let them open the door, let them, I am a modern woman. I'm a strong woman. I do a lot of things for myself, but, I think I'm probably old-fashioned in a lot of ways. Like, when we go out, I like my husband to drive. I mean, and he likes it too. It's like, you've got to figure out where that balance is in that relationship that you have with that specific person.
Right. And there's a balance, and that's the key word. So it's not you doing everything, then he would show up and go, well, where do I fit in? I don't know.
Right.
I remember Gilmore Girls. Did you watch this?
I never watched that. I know people love that show, but I never watched it.
So I watched it pretty late, I think on Netflix or something. And one of the things that really stands out for me is the mom, who's a single mom, has raised her daughter her whole life, on her own. I remember this one scene where she says, I'm so tired of doing it all on my own. I just want a man in my life to help me. And yet she comes across as this, I can do it all kind of woman. And
Right.
so it really struck me because that's really where I see so many women struggle.
Yeah.
But let's
Yeah.
get to your next chapter, because you talked about your husband. So you left this guy, you let go.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
tell us
I'm
what
sorry,
happened next.
Yes. Well,
We know the ending here already.
you know the ending. I'm sorry.
Fill in the blanks.
I will fill in the blanks. So I came back to the East Coast and I started over. And when I felt ready after not that long a time, because I think I had been gestating on letting go for so long with my previous relationship that, to your point, by the time I had gotten to that stranger's bathroom floor, I had come a long ways in knowing what I needed to do and starting to untether myself. So I online dated, which was a fascinating, interesting experience. And it was interesting because, of course, I'd been in a relationship for 12 years. So prior to being in that relationship, there was no such thing as online dating. So I remember the first time someone wrote to me, I was so horrified. I ran into the bathtub and pulled the curtain shut, fully clothed. I was convinced they could see me. I thought, oh my God, what is this thing that's happening? But, it was such an interesting experience because I could feel those old sort of limiting beliefs and patterns and behaviors come creeping back up as I was back out into the dating scene after I had, done this work on myself and figured out who I was and what I wanted and what I was willing to accept in the world. And there was one guy in particular who I really liked a lot. And we'd have these great dates, and then he would go underground for, weeks. And then he would breach on a Saturday morning and send me a note, hey, want to have dinner? And I said yes 3 times. And I said, oh, Jill, I thought, well, I'll just be here when he's ready and we'll be able to go forward. And then I was like, oh, sweetheart, no. And so when the 4th time came, I said, it's great, but no. Yeah, I could feel myself. So to your point, you do eventually at some point have to go back out there and remember the shifts that you'd made, which I did. And then I wound up meeting my husband, my now husband. And I knew pretty quickly when we met that he was going to be kind of the guy. It does, here's the thing. When you get into your 40s and older, you don't need years to know if someone is the one. You just don't. You're not looking for the same things. You're not looking to start a family. You're not looking to build, buy your starter house. You're not looking for that. You're really looking for someone to be in the bunker with. And I knew pretty quickly with him that he was going to be my guy. I knew, and so did he. And so we moved in together pretty quickly. And it's funny because after we had been on a few dates, he sent me a beautiful email. It was just gorgeous. It was in the email, there was a picture of this beautiful couple walking on the beach under a sunset. He said, and this is what I think about when I think of you.
Oh.
And I was like, well, that's beautiful. So I went online and found a picture of the largest diamond ring I could find. And I pasted into the email. And I said, and this is what I think about when I think of you, because I was not about to be in a relationship for another 12 years. And at that point, I was not afraid to state what I wanted from life, and I knew that he was kind of in the same space with me. And I thought, well, if he responds well to this, then, it's showtime. And he was great about it. He was really, I'm sure I couldn't see him when he received that. I was probably a little shell shocked.
I think he went into the bathtub and closed the
He probably did. But, hey, he got a really good glimpse of me. He figured out pretty quickly what he was dealing with. And we got married about 14 months later. So, and we've been happily married for almost 15 years.
Wow.
So
Yeah,
it's been, great. It was
I love
wonderful.
it. And
Yeah.
you had to let go in order to let him in. And you were so clear about it.
Yes.
This is what I want. I don't want to waste time. So there's a lot of guys like the guy who shows up on a Saturday morning and disappears for a few
Right.
weeks and comes back.
Right.
And
Right. That's
bad
right.
people, they're casual. They could be quality guys, but they're
And
casual.
that's okay.
Right, but that's not what you wanted.
That's not for me.
Yeah.
If another woman was, let's say, coming out of divorce and doesn't want to get married, doesn't want to get serious, but wants to have, and every once in a while, a companion, that's a perfect situation for them.
Yeah.
Maybe that works for them. Or maybe I just wasn't the right one for him. Like maybe he didn't feel compelled to call me any more frequently. And that's okay too. We're not always for everybody.
No.
And that's okay too.
Right.
And I think that's another thing that a lot of people struggle with, especially, he didn't marry me. He didn't want to marry me, but then he married the next person that came along. Okay. You weren't the right one for him. And by proxy, he was not the right one for you. Take the lessons, take the gifts, keep going.
Yeah. And people
Not a referendum on your worth or whether you're, worthy of the things that you want in life.
Exactly. And that's where people go often is,
Yeah.
it's a rejection of me. I must not be worthy. So I'm going to just hang it up now.
Yes.
And, it's unbelievable. The conclusions that people come to, because, most of the time, like even I see women go on a date, they don't like the guy, but he didn't call them back. So they feel rejected. And I'm like, you didn't want him anyway. At least he had the courage to not ask you out again. Like, you just wanted the power of rejection. Seriously.
Right. That's right.
But yeah, I think years ago, I had a guy who would show up every once in a while. He lived a distance. Actually, he lived in your neck of the woods. And so it was a couple miles away, and we would meet halfway, and really good looking guy. But he would disappear and then send me these stupid texts. And I just got tired of them. And I said no. But I had another, so that was before, now I wouldn't tolerate it at all. But now I had another guy who we had a couple of really good dates, and then he forgot that he made a date with me, and he never confirmed it. He never confirmed the location, but he confirmed a day. And I didn't reach out to him. He was like dropping off the side of the earth. And the next day he apologized to me. I'm so sorry. It's been so busy at work. And there was a lot of I'm so sorries, and it's been really busy. And I said, that's fine. And he goes, would you ever forgive me? And I said, I forgive you, but I don't want to date you anymore.
Right.
And it's like, I don't care. You go do your business, because that's your priority right now. But I'm looking for somebody who's making relationships a priority. So
that's right.
And he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm just like, go do your business.
Yeah.
But before I did this work, I would have waited. I would have felt bad. I would have reprimanded. I would have tried to school him in the right way to date, all the good stuff.
You would have emailed or texted that night. Where are you?
Oh, yeah.
Hi. Those impulses are so different when you are not a woman of value. The impulses win.
Yeah.
And I love that story, because that's, I believe, ultimately how you call into your life the right people that have the capacity to give you what you want. And I say, I used to date with the idea that I wanted them to like me. I wanted them to call me. And as I, moved into the online dating situation, I came down to, I have to like them first. Yep. I have to feel as if they're right for me first. So I'm going into this experience with a very different mindset than, instead of going into it from a place of, fear and anxiety and desperation. And I say that with no judgment. That's just how I used to move through dating in my younger years. I went into it with a sense of play and adventure and confidence in knowing who I am and what I'm willing to have in my life, and what my negotiables, what my non-negotiables are. And that has to be okay for me first. And really, I continue to move through life, even though I'm happily married. Those are skills that transfer over and over every single day, as you know, if we leave the house, you know, as life challenges us, I mean, as we get older and more we're being faced with hard things, consistently coming back to, who are you and how do you want the world to treat you, and what are you willing to accept and not accept? Those constantly, I think we're constantly being called to the mat on those things. And if we don't remember who we are, that we really risk falling back into the old ways of doing things, into that vortex of, you know, and then there we are again, having to, you know, crawl our way back up. So, yeah.
It's so true. And I'm glad that you brought it into the bigger picture, because it is true. I mean, I found that when I did this work and I finally owned my value, I owned it in every part of my life, with my children, with my friends, with men I was dating, with my business. And you step back and you make choices like, do I want this client? Is this client a good fit? Not, I hope they pick me, but is this a good fit for me? Is this program I'm running working for me still? Like, you really take an assessment of everything in your life, because our energy is limited, our time is limited, and we have to make good choices.
Right. And even, you know, even in acceptance of that, I mean, that, you know, coming to embrace the idea, like we were joking about earlier, you know, 4:00 dinner, but I mean,
I like
not
it.
that I want to have dinner at 4:00, although if I'm going to be really honest on your podcast, sometimes I'd like to have dinner at 4:00.
Hey, I'm all for it.
Hey, it fits right into the whole intermittent fasting thing. But, you know, it's kind of leaning into the idea that, you know, we don't have the same levels of energy and the same priorities and the same options available to us as we grow older. And that's okay. You know, a lot of people don't get to experience all these different ages in life.
Yeah.
And so again, the whole, when you value yourself in a certain way, you're not beating yourself up for doing what's natural. You're not beating yourself up for, you know, having a hot flash in the middle of a business meeting, because that's just part of life and it's okay, you know, or, you know, realizing that I can't do X, Y, or Z anymore and I don't want to. Yeah. And it's okay. I'm not trying to be something I'm not. I'm in full embrace of just what is.
What I'm hearing is self-compassion and vulnerability and a lack of shame, which is huge growth, because so many people are still stuck there feeling bad about everything. And that's where all the apologies come from. And feeling like you're not perfect enough to do certain things in life. And, you know, again, I've been there and it feels so good to be on the other side of that. I mean, certainly we all fall back into that a little bit sometimes, but but knowing that when we show up with our flaws, when we show up with being able to laugh at the hot flash, or the fact that, you know, oops, forgot my notes for an important meeting, you know, like, it's okay. And then you can wing it and you can be human, and people relate to humans much more than robots. I personally don't find an emotional robotic people.
Not yet. Hasn't happened for me.
No.
But, you know, I say like, who else would get on a TEDx stage and talk about like her grandest relationship failure?
Me.
Right, exactly. That's right.
That's why we bonded.
That's right. Exactly.
You got to be willing to tell it, you know.
You got to be willing to tell it, because so many of us are going through it.
Exactly. People, that's why you're doing this book, because so many people related to your story. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
So Jill, you created this new business based on all these experiences. Tell us what you're creating in the world right now.
I hope I'm doing no harm. That's for sure. I am. What I'm really trying to create is something that can really be useful to the woman and even the men, because I hear from men. In fact, sometimes I'm rather impressed by what I hear from men, who was where I was, who is sitting in a long-term relationship, terrified to make a move, thinking it's her only shot, thinking, you know, unable to take that risk and believe that what she wants is available, possible, and that she deserves it. And so what I'm trying to do is create tools, a methodology, information, and even, you know, role model and example, not just through myself, but through other women that I connect with, and being on podcasts like yours, Sandy, where they're not just listening to me, but they're also having the benefit of your wisdom and your experience, so that they understand that there are infinite possibilities in life for happiness. And, you know, I talk to so many women from all over the world, and there's so much desperation. I hear the desperation in their voices when it comes to love and the relationships that they're in. And it's a little bit heartbreaking for me. And again, I say it with no judgment because I see myself in there. And I just hope that I'm helpful in showing them. Like I always say, I can't imagine what it would have been like for me, you know, in year 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, to pull a phone out of my pocket and see this woman saying, it's okay, you can do it, you'll be fine. Just do it, you'll be fine. I did it, go for it.
Yeah.
I think that would have been very, very powerful for me. And I think it would have inspired me to make changes that I just didn't know how to make sooner than when I did. And, you know, there's opportunity cost for everything. What is the cost of giving over so many years? And I try not to look back with regret. And I really don't feel any regret, but in those moments, they're scary because there are things we want that, you know, we're giving up by being stuck in wherever it is. I mean, I recently left my big corporate job. Absolutely terrifying. I applied all of my principles to that experience because life is just too short. And I know it's a cliche, but it's short and it's super long. So we really need to be, you know, doing and having the love that we want. And that really all starts with your message of knowing that you're a woman of value. For me, that's a big, wild, loving message, because once we are in that space, all things become possible for us. And that's the work that I hope I'm putting out into the world right now. Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate to so much of your story because I was stuck in a 23-year marriage. And I said yes to him because I didn't think that what I wanted existed. I didn't think the kind of love I wanted was real. I thought it was a fairy tale. I thought, you know, I've tried so hard to make it happen. It's not happening. So this is as good as it gets. And it wasn't. It wasn't on so many levels. And even though I wasn't happy, I pushed and tried and twisted myself into a pretzel to make it work. And if I say it this way and upside down and backwards, and it's like, that's not, you don't start with a weak foundation and try to build something on it. You start with a strong foundation with a real connection. And a lot of people don't know what that is. They don't know how to even recognize it when it shows up. And so,
and I will tell you, and I find this really, like, I look at the young women in the world today, you know, we're really all having this conversation. There's a lot of conversation around self-love, right? When you and I were growing up, I don't know about you, there was none of that. The prize was winning the love of another person. It was, and again, I say this with no judgment to my parents. They're wonderful parents, but it's just how it was. You know, we didn't talk about, you know, it's okay to focus on your loving your own self, not as overtly, as outwardly, and as comprehensively and robustly as so many voices, women's voices are doing in the world today, which encourages me for, you know, the generations coming up now. And, you know, so many times I wish I could say to that young 20-something, chill out, like just relax, you know, it's fine. All the things you want, you will have if you choose them. So
it's the problem is that not everybody can hear the message. And I can tell you from my own experience, I have a friend who's in a terrible marriage. She knows it. She wants to leave, and she just keeps not leaving. And she's very empowered in every other area of her life. But every time she'd call me, she'd say, can you believe what my husband did? And yeah, because that's what he always does. And so
Right.
how much longer are you willing to stay?
Right.
And, so she's
Yeah.
seen me take a leap without knowing what's on the other side. She knows that lots of people do it. And for some reason, she's scared to make that leap. So
Yeah.
not everybody who has role models, who sees it, who knows it, can do it.
Right. I mean, I've seen it too. And some of the people in my own world. And I just put myself through my process and say, I just refocus back on, okay, I can spin on this, or I can go back to, what do I want? That's the question that always grounds me away. Cause I think a lot of people really struggle with some of that. It's hard though. Yeah, it's really hard. It's, it's a process of evolution and growth, and something we all have to experience in our own way, on our own timeline. Yep. So, but if if there's one person you can grab, if there's one person, I mean, I've had, people come back to me and say, I did it. I let it go. It was amazing. Life is so much better. And that's enough for me.
Yeah. Your dog agrees.
Yeah. I'm sorry. They're loud. They've been really good. I'm really amazed. I have the door closed and everything's battened down in here. But
all right. Well, we're almost done. We're ready for the lightning round.
Yes, I love the lightning round. I love this.
Okay, so a couple questions, and then we're gonna wrap. So,
okay,
fill in the blank. I used to think I wasn't blank enough.
Thin enough. Pretty enough, good enough.
Ooh, lots of enoughs. What was the number one thing holding you back from becoming a woman of value?
Oh my God, so many limiting beliefs about not being thin enough, pretty enough, or good enough.
Yeah.
Yes. I think, universally thinking that I should just take whatever I could get.
Yeah.
Because it was all I could get.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You call that the beggar's table.
Yeah, that's me. There I was.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't think you
For
can
sure.
eat from the banquet that you're
right.
eating. Like, what are the crumbs falling off? Give me some of those.
Especially with the 12-year relationship. I mean, it was like, he was wonderful, but it was still, in some level, that was the best I could do. Because it wasn't all the way there. But anyway, yeah.
You got the banquet now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What's a mistake that you made that taught you an important life lesson?
Oh, that's such a good question. My entire 20s. Dating in my entire 20s. The mistake that I made is always hoping that is having a really bad set of criteria for dating. The main criteria being if they liked me. If they didn't have a humpback or like something, I would say yes. If they liked me, great. I liked them.
Good criteria.
So, yeah, not so good.
No humpback.
No humpback. No offense to anybody.
I know, really. For all of you osteoporosis people like me.
Right. I'm super imperfect. I got plenty of my own stuff.
Yeah. So, not meaning to
right, disparage anybody.
Yes, exactly. All right. So what's the best advice you can give to a woman who wants to become more empowered?
Start in the mirror. Start in the mirror. Ask yourself what you want. Don't be afraid to ask that question. I find so many people don't want to ask the question because they're afraid of the answer, because if they know the answer and then they hold it up to what they have, it's not what they want. And then they actually have to do something. So ask yourself what it is that you really want, and do what you need to do to believe that you are worthy of it and that it's available to you. Very important.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Often people say they want something and their belief about getting it is completely not matching what they want. And it's you got to take a look at that, because your belief system is pushing that thing that you want away.
And, I actually talk about this in my book, because there's a great study that Match.com did around this, where they looked at how they could perfectly match people, but based on what they say they want, but then when they matched them, it's not really what they wanted. So I actually made up a name for this, like a medical condition name for this. It's my book, because I suffered from it for years. So yes, know what you want. And if it's really, really what you want.
What's the name?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, what's the name you came up with?
I call it romanticitis disconnecteditis.
That's great. I love it. Yeah. You know, it's interesting on another level. People come to coaching thinking they want this, but what they really need is not this. It's something
That's right.
completely different. And the same with therapy. The
Yeah.
presenting problem is never what's
That's right.
for me.
That's right.
I'm coming here for validation because I want to leave my husband because he's a jerk and I want you to tell me I'm right. No.
Right.
Let's talk about you because you can't do it.
Oh my God.
Right?
I love that you just said that. I can't wait for you to read my book, Sandy, because I actually have a part of one of my chapters actually has that exact situation in it. That's all I'll say. Go ahead. Yeah. I can't wait for you to read my book. Okay, go ahead.
Fix him. He's the problem.
Right.
Yeah. Let's, yeah. All right. So finally, and this is the legacy question, how would you like to be remembered, Jill?
Well, that's a huge question. I used to answer that question by saying, tell them I was really thin, but I don't say that anymore. Now I just want to be remembered for being helpful. To those people that are really stuck. I really do. As the person who wasn't afraid to tell the truth and try and help other people through being honest. I mean, really, that sounds very Pollyanna, but it really is where I'm at right now.
I will say that it's not Pollyanna. It's also not very common to have people show up honestly with a sense of humor, be in service to others, which you have so many times over because you're out there, you're doing it, you're not in hiding, you're taking risks, emotional risks by leaving corporate world, by leaving a relationship that didn't work. This is how we get what we want, but also to inspire others because you walk your talk.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's nice. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show today and inspiring
I loved it.
more people.
Oh, it was so fun. I always love talking with you.
If you would like to step more fully into your value, grab a free copy of The Ultimate Guide to Becoming a Woman of Value on my website, thewomanofvalue.com. Just click the link at the top of the homepage. And if you haven't already done so, be sure to click the subscribe button in your listening app. And if there's something in this episode that inspired you, please share it with others, because the more we share these inspirational stories, the more women of value we will have in this world. I'll see you next time.